In the winding streets of Marrakesh, at the turn of the 20th century, there stood a modest cobbler's shop. It was unremarkable in every way, tucked among the countless stalls and workshops of the bazaar. The man who owned it was a shoemaker, quiet and unassuming. His name was Haj Muhammad Mesfui. Young women would enter his shop seeking repairs, new shoes, or simply passing through the maze of the marketplace. Some would never leave. Mesfui didn't work alone. His accomplice was a woman named Anna, 70 years old, her face weathered by time and secrets. Together, they had perfected a terrible routine. They would drug the women who came to the shop, rendering them unconscious. Then they would kill them. For what? Sometimes a few coins, sometimes a piece of jewelry, sometimes for reasons even they couldn't explain. The disappearances went unnoticed for a long time. In a bustling city like Marrakesh, where travelers came and went, where the poor could vanish without anyone asking questions, who would notice a missing seamstress? A servant girl? A merchant's daughter passing through? But one family noticed. When their daughter failed to return home, they began retracing her steps. Shop by shop, street by street, questioning anyone who might have seen her. The trail led them to the cobbler's shop in the bazaar, the quiet shop with the quiet man. When the authorities investigated, they found something that would haunt Marrakesh for generations. Near the shop, buried in shallow graves, wrapped in cloth, hidden beneath the earth, were the remains of 36 women. 36 lives reduced to mutilated corpses, disposed of like refuse. Mesfui and Anna were arrested immediately. In those days, questioning meant more than words. It meant torture, the kind that extracted confessions whether they were true or not. Anna, 70 years old and frail, did not survive the interrogation. Her body gave out before she could speak. But Mesfui survived, and he talked. He confessed to every murder, describing each one with disturbing clarity. He admitted to killing them for almost nothing. A handful of coins, a silver bracelet. The women meant nothing to him. They were simply opportunities, transactions that ended in death. The authorities deliberated on his punishment. His crimes were so monstrous, so incomprehensible, that the usual penalties seemed insufficient. They considered crucifixion, a punishment so ancient and brutal that even in 1906 it was rarely invoked. The sentence was announced, but Morocco was not isolated from the world. Foreign embassies, representing powerful European nations, lodged formal protests. Crucifixion was too barbaric, they argued, too medieval for a modern world. Morocco, unable to resist the pressure from these influential powers, relented. The sentence was changed to beheading, a quicker and more common form of execution. News of the new sentence spread through Marrakesh like wildfire. The people were outraged. Beheading? For a man who had murdered 36 women? For a monster who had turned his shop into a slaughterhouse? It was far too merciful, far too quick. The crowds demanded something more. They demanded that Mesfui suffer as his victims had suffered. The authorities listened. They settled on a punishment that satisfied both the desire for justice and the need for spectacle, immurement. Mesfui would be walled up alive, sealed inside a tomb of his own, left to die in darkness and silence. A special cell was constructed in the wall of the bazaar, the very place where he had committed his crimes. It measured roughly 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep, and 6 feet tall. Just large enough for a man to stand, but not to sit. Not to lie down, not to escape. Chains were bolted to the back wall to ensure he would remain upright, unable to collapse even as exhaustion overtook him. Mesfui was not told of his fate until the morning of his execution. Perhaps they wanted to spare him the torment of anticipation, or perhaps they simply wanted to see his reaction when he learned the truth. When the guards came for him, he understood immediately. They led him through the streets in chains, and he began to scream. He screamed as they brought him to the wall. He screamed as they positioned him inside the narrow cell, locking the chains around his body. He screamed as the masons began their work, laying brick after brick, sealing him inside. A crowd gathered to watch. They fell silent as each brick was placed, the wall growing higher and higher, the opening growing smaller and smaller. They wanted to hear him. They wanted to know he was suffering. And then the final brick was laid. The wall was complete. Mesfui was entombed. For a moment, there was silence. Then his screams erupted from behind the wall, muffled but unmistakable. The crowd erupted in cheers. Justice, they believed, was being served. He screamed for hours. His voice grew hoarse, then raw, then desperate. He screamed through the first night, his cries echoing through the bazaar long after the crowd had dispersed. He screamed through the second day, though his voice was weaker now, breaking with exhaustion and dehydration. Still, the screams continued. A sound so primal, so filled with agony, that even those who had celebrated his punishment began to feel unease. By the third day, the screams had stopped. Mesfui was silent. Whether he had finally succumbed to thirst, to suffocation, to madness, or simply to the mercy of death, no one could say. The wall remained standing for years afterward, a grim monument to his crimes and his punishment. Locals would walk past it, knowing what lay behind the bricks. Some claimed they could still hear faint sounds coming from within, though whether that was the wind or their own imagination, no one could be sure. The shoemaker of Marrakesh had vanished, but his story did not. It became a warning, a ghost story told in whispers. A reminder that some crimes are so terrible, even death is not punishment enough. And so the wall stood, silent and unyielding, holding its terrible secret within.